They say the cruelest prisons are the ones we build inside ourselves. For 7 years, Elara Ashwood lived in such a prison, a cage of silence, invisible among the hundreds of servants in the Alpha King's citadel. She scrubbed floors, changed linens, and kept her eyes downcast, speaking only in whispers so soft they barely disturbed the air. No one knew that the meek, voiceless servant who haunted the castle's shadowed corridors had once been someone else entirely. No one knew that her silence wasn't born of shyness, but of survival, and no one, not even the Alpha King himself, whose rooms she'd cleaned for 7 long years, knew that the voice she hid could shake kingdoms, until the night everything changed. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The pre-dawn air in the royal citadel was cold enough to burn. Elara's fingers, raw and dastardly, reddened from years of lye soap and stone scrubbing, moved with practiced efficiency across the marble floors of the king's private corridor. It was 4 in the morning, the hour when even the most dutiful servants were still abed, when the castle breathed in its deepest sleep. This was her time, the only time she could work without eyes upon her, without the constant fear of being truly seen. Her cleaning rag made soft, rhythmic sounds against the stone. Swish, ring, swish. It was almost meditative. This ritual she'd performed every morning for 7 years. She knew every crack in these floors, every imperfection in the ancient stonework. She knew which boards creaked, which shadows offered the best hiding places, which corridors the king walked at dawn before his day began. She knew far too much about Alpha King Cassian Nightshade for a servant who was supposed to be invisible. Missed a spot. The voice came from directly behind her. Elara's heart seized. Her hand froze. Mid-scrub, water dripping from the cloth onto stone she'd already cleaned. She hadn't heard him approach. She never heard him approach, which was terrifying for a man of his size and power. 7 years of proximity, and he still moved like smoke. Slowly, keeping her eyes on the floor, she turned and dropped into a deep curtsy. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice barely audible even in the silent corridor. "I'll correct it immediately." King Cassian stood 10 feet away, already dressed for the day in dark leather and understated armor, his massive frame somehow both relaxed and coiled, like a wolf deciding whether to pounce or merely observe. At 6'5", with shoulders that seemed carved from the mountains themselves, he was a figure of dark, devastating power. His hair was black as a moonless night, worn slightly long and often tied back, but it was his eyes that haunted her dreams, silver gray, like storm clouds pregnant with lightning, ancient and knowing, and impossibly sad. He'd ruled the northern kingdoms for over 2 centuries. He was the most powerful alpha in existence, feared and revered in equal measure, and for 7 years, she had cleaned his rooms, changed his sheets, and tried desperately not to exist too loudly in his presence. "You're here early," he observed, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in her bones. It wasn't a question, but it felt like one. "I prefer the quiet, Your Majesty," Elara whispered, still not meeting his gaze. A proper servant never looked an alpha directly in the eyes, much less the Alpha King. Less disruption to the household. That wasn't the full truth. The truth was that being here at dawn, when he was barely awake and the castle slept, felt safer. In the crowded daylight hours, there were too many eyes, too many questions, too many chances someone might recognize her for what she truly was. "You've been my most consistent servant," Cassian said, and something in his tone made her risk a glance upward just to his chin, not his eyes. 7 years, isn't it? And I don't even know your name." Ice flooded her veins. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. You didn't survive 2 centuries as Alpha King without observing everything. "Elara, Your Majesty," she breathed. "Elara Ashwood." "Ashwood," he repeated, as if testing the weight of it. "From the Eastern Territories?" "Yes, Your Majesty." That, at least, wasn't a lie. She had been from the Eastern Territories. Before. He moved closer, and every instinct screamed at her to flee. But servants didn't flee. Servants stood still and hoped to be dismissed. She clutched her cleaning rag like a lifeline. "You have an unusual scent," he said quietly, and her heart stopped entirely. "It's faint. Muted, like you're trying to hide it. But it's there. moonflower and winter rain. No. No, no, no. If he could scent her properly, if he could sense past the suppressants she took daily, the herbal teas that dampened her. Natural scent. I use the standard servant soap, Your Majesty, she whispered desperately. Perhaps it's the cleaning solutions. Perhaps. But he didn't sound convinced. He studied her with those ancient knowing eyes, and she felt stripped bare, every secret exposed. You speak very quietly, Elara Ashwood. Is it shyness? Or something else? I prefer not to disturb, Your Majesty. He turned then, heading toward his chambers, and she thought she was safe, thought he would let it go. But he paused at his door. 7 years you've moved through my home like a ghost. 7 years I've watched you flinch at loud voices, hide in shadows, make yourself small. What are you running from, little servant? The question was gentle, but it pierced her like a blade. Nothing, Your Majesty, she lied, her voice barely a thread of sound. I'm simply no one. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, no one tries that hard to be invisible unless they're hiding. Something worth finding. He disappeared into his chambers, closing the door with a quiet click that sounded like thunder in the silence. Elara's hands were shaking so badly she dropped the cleaning rag. She stood there in the empty corridor, her heart hammering against her ribs, and felt the walls of her carefully constructed prison trembling. After 7 years of perfect invisibility, the Alpha King had finally noticed her, and that was the most dangerous thing that could have possibly happened. The rest of the day passed in a blur of terror and forced normalcy. Elara moved through her duties with mechanical precision, making beds in the guest quarters, scrubbing the great hall's floors, hauling linens to the laundry. But her mind was elsewhere, spinning through possibilities, each one worse than the last. She should run, pack her meager belongings and disappear into the wilderness again, find another territory, another identity, another hole to hide in. But 7 years. 7 years she'd built this life, thin and shadowed as it was. 7 years of safety, in the heart of the most fortified stronghold in the realm. Where could she go that would be safer than here, under the nose of a king too powerful for anyone to challenge? Elara. A sharp voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. She turned to find Margot, the head housekeeper, a stern woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. The king has requested you specifically for his evening chambers. The world tilted. I what? Elara's whisper was even softer than usual. You heard me. Margot's expression was unreadable. Apparently you've been doing such a fine job with the morning cleaning that he wants you for the evening turndown as well. Consider it a promotion, she sniffed. Though I can't imagine why. You're quiet as a mouse and half as memorable. That had always been the point. I'll attend immediately, Elara breathed, as she made her way through the castle's winding corridors toward the royal wing. Dread settled over her like a shroud. This was wrong. Kings didn't notice servants. Kings didn't request specific servants for menial tasks. This was a test, or a trap, or Elara Ashwood. The voice came from a side corridor, and she nearly jumped out of her skin. A man emerged from the shadows, tall, scarred, with the bearing of a warrior and eyes that held the weight of centuries. She recognized him, Lord Thorn, the king's second-in-command and oldest friend. A primordial alpha, like the king himself, ancient and deadly. Lord Thorn, she whispered, dropping into a curtsy. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. Her pulse thundered as she fell into step beside him, keeping her eyes downcast. He led her through a servant's passage, away from the main corridors, into a section of the castle few visited. Do you know why the king has taken an interest in you? Thorn asked without preamble. No, my lord. Don't. Lie to me, girl. I can hear your heartbeat from here. You're terrified, and not just of him. You're terrified of being discovered. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He stopped, turning to face her fully. What are you? The question hit like a physical blow. I'm a servant, my lord. Nothing more. No. His voice was flat, certain. No, you're not. I've been watching you for 7 years, same as he has. You move wrong for a common servant. You're too careful, too controlled, and you're sent. He leaned closer, inhaling. is wrong. It's suppressed, masked. What herb are you taking? Nightshade root? Shadow's breath? Both, actually. Plus 3 others. I don't know what you mean, my lord, she whispered. Thorn's expression hardened. If you're a threat to him, I'm not. The words burst from her, lewder than she'd spoken in years, and she immediately clapped a hand over her mouth in horror. But the damage was done. Thorn's eyes widened fractionally. That voice, he breathed. 7 years of whispers. And now, he grabbed her arm, not roughly, but firmly. What are you hiding? Tears burned behind her eyes. Please, she whispered. Please, I just want to be left alone. I'm no threat to anyone. I just want to survive. Then tell me the truth. Who are you really? The walls were crumbling. 7 years of carefully constructed silence. 7 years of being no one. And it was all falling apart because the wrong people had finally looked at her closely enough to see. Her voice broke. I can't. If anyone knows, if anyone finds out what? That I'm not supposed to be alive. The confession hung in the air between them, heavy as a death sentence. Thorn's grip on her arm loosened, but his expression remained sharp, analytical. Who wants you dead? He asked quietly. Everyone. The word came out broken, a whisper of pure despair. Everyone who knows what I am. Before Thorn could respond, a presence filled the corridor. Powerful, ancient, undeniable. Alpha King Cassian emerged from a connecting passage, his silver-gray eyes moving from Thorn to Elara, taking in the scene with the calculating precision of a predator. Thorn, the king said, his voice deceptively mild. Why do you have your hand on my servant? The possessiveness in those words sent a shock through Elara's system. My servant. Apologies, your majesty. Thorn released her immediately, bowing his head in deference. I was merely inquiring about her service. Were you? It wasn't a question. Cassian's gaze moved to Elara, and she felt it like a physical touch, stripping away layers, seeing too much. Leave us. Your majesty, Thorn began. That wasn't a request. Thorn hesitated for only a moment, then bowed and departed, throwing one last unreadable glance at Elara before disappearing around the corner. Silence descended, thick and suffocating. Elara kept her eyes locked on the stone floor, counting the cracks in the mortar, trying to control her, breathing, trying not to fall apart. Look at me. The command rolled through her, gentle but inexorable. Alpha command, the power that forced submission from any wolf. She'd been subjected to it before, 7 years ago, when no. Don't think about that. Don't remember. Slowly, fighting every instinct, she raised her eyes to meet his. Silver gray crashed into dark brown, and the world stuttered. Something passed between them, some charge in the air, some impossible recognition. The king's pupils dilated, his nostrils flared, and for just a moment, one impossible, terrifying moment, his eyes flashed pure gold. No, he breathed. No, it can't be. Ilara's heart was a war drum. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything, but stand there as the Alpha King stared at her like she was a ghost made flesh. You, he said, his voice rough with an emotion she couldn't name. All this time, 7 years. You've been right here. I don't understand, your majesty, she whispered, but it was a lie. She understood. She understood with a certainty that felt like the ground opening beneath her feet. The mate bond, the one thing she'd thought she'd never have, would never risk having, the sacred connection that could doom them both. You're sent, Cassian said, taking a step closer. She took a step back. When it's not hidden by whatever herbs you're poisoning yourself with. It calls to me. It's been calling to me for 7 years, but so faint, I thought I was imagining it. Moonflower and winter rain. Another step. The scent of my fated mate. No. The word tore from her throat. No, you're mistaken. Please, your majesty. You don't want. Don't tell me what I want. His voice had dropped to something dangerous, something possessive and ancient. Tell me what you are. Tell me why you're hiding. Tell me. He was close now. Too close. Tell me your real name. It is Elara Ashwood, she said desperately. That's not a lie. I am. But you're not just a servant from the Eastern Territories. His hand rose, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his palm. You're something else. Something you've been hiding for 7 years in my own home. Tell me. The walls of her prison were rubble now. There was no more hiding, no more running. He'd seen her. He'd scented her. The mate bond had declared itself, and there was no taking it back. I'm Omega, she whispered, born to the Silverpine Pack in the Eastern Territories. 7 years ago, my pack was destroyed. Everyone I loved was killed, and her voice cracked. I was supposed to die with them. His expression shifted. Storm clouds gathering. The Silverpine massacre. Yes, but you survived. I ran. I was a coward. I ran while my family burned, while my pack was slaughtered, and I've been running ever since. Tears streamed down her face now, 7 years of grief breaking through. I came here because no one would think to. Look for a Silverpine survivor in the Alpha King's own home. I hid in plain sight. I became no one. I was safe being no one. Who did it? The question was soft, deadly. Who destroyed your pack? She shook her head mutely. Elara. He reached out, cupped her face with one large hand, tilting her shin up. The touch sent electricity racing through her system, the mate bond singing with recognition. Tell me who did this to you. Alpha Ronan Blackthorn, she breathed. Of the Blackthorn Pack. He wanted our territory, our resources. When my Alpha refused to surrender, Ronan came with 100 warriors in the dead of night. He gave orders to kill everyone. Leave no witnesses, no survivors. Wipe the Silverpine Pack from existence. Cassian's eyes had gone full gold now, his wolf rising to the surface. The temperature in the corridor dropped 10 degrees. Why you? He asked. Why did you need to hide for 7 years? Ronan Blackthorn is a bastard, but he's been quiet since the Fode massacre. He has what he wanted. Because I saw him, Elara whispered. I saw him murder my parents. I saw his face in the firelight as he laughed, and he saw me. Before I ran, before I escaped into the forest, he looked right at me. He knows there's one witness left alive, one person who could testify to what really happened that night. And if you testified, he'd be executed. The high laws are clear. Unprovoked pack annihilation is a death sentence, even for an alpha, but only if there's a witness. She met Cassian's blazing gold eyes. I'm the only one left who knows the truth. That's why I can't speak. That's why I've hidden my voice, my scent, my very existence. Because the moment Ronan discovers I'm alive, he'll come for me, and he won't stop until I'm dead. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Cassian spoke, and his voice held the weight of mountains, the fury of storms, the promise of kingdoms burning. He won't touch you, not while breath remains in my body. You don't understand, Your Majesty. He's powerful. He has alliances. If you protect me, if you make this political. This isn't political. His other hand rose, framing her face, holding her gently despite the lethal power coiled in every line of his body. You're my mate, Elara Ashwood, the one the moon goddess chose for me. I've waited 2 centuries to find you. Do you truly think I'd let some murderous bastard take you from me? But, no. The word was final, absolute. You've been silent for 7 years. You've hidden, diminished yourself, lived in fear. No more. I'm going to teach you how to speak again, little mate, how to howl. And when you're ready, his smile was dark, dangerous, full of promise. We're going to make Ronan Blackthorn answer for every life he took, starting with yours. The king's chambers were not what Elara had imagined, though in 7 years of cleaning them, she supposed she should have known better. They were surprisingly austere, for a monarch. No gilded furniture, no ostentatious displays of wealth, just dark wood, stone, and the warmth of a perpetually burning hearth. The bed was massive, carved from ancient oak, but covered in simple furs rather than silk. It was the room of a warrior, not a peacock. Cassian had guided her here with a hand at the small of her back, that simple touch sending constant sparks through the mate bond. Every servant they'd passed had stared, their shock palpable. The Alpha King, touching a lowly cleaning girl, leading her to his private chambers. By morning, the entire citadel would be buzzing with rumors. Sit, Cassian commanded, gesturing to a chair by the fire. Elara hesitated, Servants didn't sit in the presence of royalty. Servants stood, heads bowed, waiting to be dismissed. That wasn't a suggestion. His voice was gentler now, but still held that thread of authority that made her body move before her mind could protest. She sank into the chair, her worn servant's dress a stark contrast to the fine leather. Cassian moved to a cabinet, returning with a crystal decanter and 2 glasses. He poured amber liquid into both, then pressed one into her shaking hands. "Drink. It'll help with the shock." "I shouldn't, Elara." He settled into the chair opposite hers, his large frame somehow both relaxed and coiled with tension. "For 7 years, you've followed every rule, played the perfect invisible servant. Tonight, you're going to break those rules. You're going to sit in my presence. You're going to drink my whiskey. And you're going to talk to me like an equal, because that's what you are. My mate, my queen-to-be." Queen. The word hit her like a physical blow. "I can't be a queen. I'm nobody. You're a survivor." His silver-gray eyes held hers captive. "You've endured 7 years of hell, lived in constant fear, and you're still standing. That's not nobody, Elara. That's strength most warriors never achieve." She took a sip of the whiskey. It burned going down, but the warmth that spread through her chest was steadying. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done to survive. The things I've—" Her voice broke. "I'm not worthy of stop." The command was soft but absolute. "I've spent 2 centuries listening to wolves tell me what they think I want to hear. Flattery, manipulation, political maneuvering. You know what I heard from you? Silence. Blessed, honest silence. You never asked for anything. Never tried to gain my attention. Never played games." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That alone makes you more worthy than half the nobles in this kingdom. But the mate bond." She struggled to find words. "You could reject it. You could choose someone else, someone stronger, someone who could actually help you rule. The bond doesn't work that way." His voice held ancient sadness. "When the moon goddess marks 2 souls as mates, there is no someone else. There's only you. Only ever you." He reached out, his hand hovering near hers, asking permission. "May I?" Slowly, trembling, she placed her hand in his. The contact was electric. The mate bond flared to life between them, a golden thread of connection that felt like coming home and falling off a cliff simultaneously. She gasped, and Cassian's eyes fluttered closed, his jaw clenching. "Gods," he breathed. "I felt echoes of this for 7 years. Every time you walked past. Every time you cleaned my rooms while I pretended to work. I thought I was going mad, feeling drawn to a servant I'd never even properly seen." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "You were right there. My mate was right there, and I didn't know." "I couldn't let you know," Elara whispered. "If you'd noticed me, if you'd investigated, Ronan would have heard. He has spies everywhere, Your Majesty. That's how he stayed in power, how he's avoided consequences for the massacre. He knows things he shouldn't, hears whispers from the most unlikely places." "Cassian." When she looked confused, he clarified. "My name is Cassian. When we're alone, you will use it." "I can't." "You can. You will." His grip on her hand tightened. "I need to hear my name in your real voice, Elara. 7 years I've only heard you whisper. I need to hear you speak." The request felt impossibly intimate. More intimate than touch, than the mate bond itself. Her voice had been her most carefully guarded secret, the thing she'd hidden even more zealously than her scent or her identity. "Why?" she asked, still whispering. "Why does it matter?" "Because a voice is power." His storm-gray eyes held ancient knowledge. "And yours has been stolen from you. I want to give it back." Tears burned behind her eyes. "Ah, you don't understand. My voice, it's not normal. It's why Ronan wanted me dead even more than the others. Why I can never let anyone hear me truly speak." Cassian went very still. "What do you mean?" She pulled her hand from his, wrapping her, arms around herself. "My mother was a sound weaver. It's a rare bloodline, almost extinct now. She could influence emotions with her voice, calm aggression, soothe pain. It's why our pack was so peaceful. Why we never had the conflicts other packs did. She was our secret weapon." The words came faster now, 7 years of silence breaking like a dam. "When I turned 16, my own gifts manifested. But they weren't like hers. They were stronger, dangerous. Show me. No, I can't. If I lose control. You won't. His certainty was absolute. I'm a primordial alpha, Elara. I've survived wars, conquered kingdoms, withstood magic that would shatter lesser wolves. Whatever power you carry, I can handle it. She shook her head frantically. The last time I used my real voice, people died. My own packmates. I was trying to defend them during the attack. I was trying to help, but I was too raw, too untrained. I screamed and the memory choked her, and 5 of Ronan's warriors dropped dead, just collapsed, bleeding from their ears and eyes. That's when Ronan realized what I was. That's when he decided I had to die. Understanding dawned in Cassian's expression. You're not just a sound weaver. You're a banshee. The word hung in the air like a curse. Elara flinched from it. We don't use that term, she whispered. It's a slur. It makes us sound like monsters. You're not a monster. Cassian rose from his chair, moving to kneel before hers so they were eye level. You're a weapon that was never taught how to sheath itself. But that can be fixed. I can help you. How? You're not a sound weaver. You can't possibly understand. No, but I understand power that terrifies its wielder. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and she leaned into the touch without meaning to. For the first 50 years of my life, I couldn't control my strength. I broke everything I touched, shattered bones without meaning to, killed in my sleep because my wolf was too powerful to contain. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. My father taught me control. And I can teach you. Why would you do that? Why would you risk it? His smile was soft, devastating. Because you're mine, Elara Ashwood. Mine to protect, mine to teach, mine to cherish. The mate bond doesn't just connect us. It means I would burn this kingdom to ashes before I let harm come to you. His eyes flashed gold. And anyone who tries to hurt you will learn exactly why I'm called the Shadow King. The title sent chills down her spine. She'd heard the stories, of course. Everyone had. The Alpha King who could command darkness itself, who'd ended wars with a single howl, whose enemies simply disappeared. She'd always thought they were exaggerations. Looking into his ancient, powerful eyes, she realized they weren't. I'm afraid, she admitted in the smallest voice. I know. He pressed his forehead to hers, and the gesture was so tender it broke, something in her chest. But you don't have to be afraid alone anymore. Let me carry some of that fear for you. For 7 years, Elara had carried everything alone. The grief, the terror, the constant vigilance. The weight had been crushing, suffocating. The idea of sharing it, of letting someone else shoulder even a fraction of that burden. I don't know how, she breathed. Then we'll learn together. He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers. But first, I need you to trust me enough to speak, not whisper speak. Let me hear your real voice, Elara, please. The please destroyed her remaining defenses. An Alpha King didn't beg, didn't ask, he commanded, and the world obeyed. But Cassian was asking, giving her the choice, and somehow that made it impossible to refuse. She took a shaking breath. Another, building her courage like kindling for a fire. My name, she said, and her voice came out fuller, risher than a whisper, still quiet, still careful, but real, is Elara Ashwood. I was born under the winter moon 25 years ago. I am the last surviving member of the Silverpine Pack. And I con. Her voice cracked, emotion overwhelming her, but she pushed through. And I am so tired of being afraid. The words hung in the air, shimmering with power. She hadn't meant to let any of her gift leak through, but 7 years of suppression had left her control in tatters. The air around them grew heavy, charged with something ancient and wild. Cassian's eyes widened, not with fear, but with wonder. Gods above, he breathed. Your voice is magnificent. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. His hands framed her face, holding her gently. That was beautiful. You're beautiful. Every part of you. Before she could respond, he leaned in and captured her lips with his. The kiss was nothing like she'd imagined. There was no aggression, no demand, just a gentle exploration, a question being asked and answered. The mate bond exploded between them, golden light flooding her stance, warmth chasing away years of cold fear. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Cassian rested his forehead against hers again. "Mine," he murmured, and the possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like safety. Like finally, after 7 years of being no one, she was allowed to be someone. "Say it. Tell me you accept this bond." Terror and longing warred in her chest. If I accept, Ronan will know. The mate bond between a primordial alpha and his chosen, it's public knowledge within days. Every pack will hear of it, including his. Good. Cassian's smile was all predator. Let him hear. Let him know that you're under my protection now. Let him spend his remaining days, and I promise you, Elara, they will be few living in fear, the way he made you live. He'll come for me. I'm counting on it. The cold promise in those words made her shiver. I've been looking for an excuse to remove him for years. He's a blight on the Eastern Territories, a murderer who's escaped justice too long. But he's been careful, covering his tracks. Until now. His eyes blazed. Now I have a witness. Now I have cause. And once you're ready, once you're strong enough, we'll make him answer for every life he took. I can't testify. If I speak in front of the council, if I use my voice where others can hear, then we'll teach you control first. He pulled back, taking her hands in his. No one will force you to do anything before you're ready. But Elara, his expression turned serious. You can't hide forever. Eventually, you'll need to reclaim what was stolen from you. Your voice, your power, your right to exist without fear. He was right. She knew he was right. But 7 years of survival instincts screamed at her to run, to hide, to go back to being invisible. I don't know if I can be what you need, she confessed. A queen, a mate, someone strong enough to stand beside you. You've already been strong enough to survive what would have broken most wolves. His grip on her hands tightened. The rest? We'll figure out together. One day at a time. One moment at a time. His smile turned soft. Starting with teaching you that you're allowed to sleep in a real bed instead of that servant's cot in the basement. She blinked. How did you? I told you. I've been watching you for 7 years. He rose, pulling her to her feet. Every night, you return to the servants' quarters. Every morning at 4, you emerge to clean my corridors. You eat half a meal at best. You take herbs that suppress your nature, and you push yourself until you're ready to collapse. His expression held, gentle reprimand. That ends tonight. I can't stay here. People will talk. Your advisors will. My advisors will accept what I tell them to accept. He guided her toward the massive bed. And people can talk all they want. You're my mate, Elara. That gives you the right to, sleep wherever I do. Panic fluttered in her chest. I'm not asking you to share my bed in that way, Cassian clarified, his voice gentle. Not until you're ready, and that may be months or years from now. I'm asking you to share my space, my protection, my life. He pulled back the furs, revealing clean linens beneath. Just sleep, little mate. Real sleep, without fear. I'll keep watch. The offer was too tempting. 7 years of restless nights, of waking at every sound, of never feeling truly safe. And here was the most powerful wolf in existence, offering her sanctuary. Where will you sleep? She asked. He gestured to the chair by the fire. I don't sleep much anyway. Hazard of being 2 centuries old. That's not fair to you, Elara. He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. Let me do this. Let me give you one night where you don't have to be vigilant, where you don't have to survive. Just exist. Just rest. Tears spilled over. She was so tired. So impossibly, bone-deep tired. Okay, she whispered. Relief and something warmer flashed across his face. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then stepped back. There are sleep clothes in the wardrobe. Take whatever you need. I'll step out to give you privacy. As he moved toward the door, she found herself calling out, Cassian? He turned, and the sound of his name on her lips, her real voice, not a whisper, made him still. Thank you, she said quietly, for not making me feel broken. His smile was devastating. You could never be broken, Elara. Bent, perhaps, wounded, but not broken. Broken things don't survive 7 years in enemy territory. He paused at the threshold. They don't save themselves, over and over again, with nothing but will and silence as weapons. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You just don't know it yet. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in his chambers, his words echoing in her head. Elara didn't remember falling asleep. One moment she was sitting on the edge of the massive bed, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. The next, she was waking to pale morning light filtering through the windows and the scent of pine and winter storms, Cassian's scent surrounding her. She sat up slowly, disoriented. The Alpha King was exactly where he'd said he'd be, sitting in the chair by the now low fire, watching her with those storm-gray eyes. "You talked in your sleep," he said quietly. "Called out names. Your parents?" Shame burned through her. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Don't." He rose, moving to sit on the edge of the bed, careful not to crowd her. "There's no shame in grieving, Elara. They were your family, your pack. You're allowed to miss them." "I see them sometimes," she admitted, her voice still rough with sleep and deeper than her practiced whisper. "In dreams. They're running through fire, trying to reach me, but I can never get to them. I just watch them burn, over and over." Cassian's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Tell me about them, not how they died, who they were, when they were alive." The request caught her off guard. In 7 years, no one had asked about the Silver Pine Pack, about the people they'd been before the massacre. They'd become statistics, cautionary tales, forgotten names. "My father was Alpha," she began slowly. "But he was gentle. He believed in negotiation over violence, in building alliances instead of taking territory by force. The other Alphas thought he was weak because of it." Her throat tightened. "But our pack was happy. We had enough. We didn't need to conquer. He sounds wise. He was. And my mother," a smile ghosted across her lips. "She could sing. Really sing, not just the sound weaving. She'd perform at gatherings, and other packs would travel for days just to hear her. She tried to teach me, but I was always too loud, too much. Power and not enough control. That's not a flaw," Cassian said. "That's just raw potential waiting for direction." She used to say the same thing. Elara's eyes burned with unshed tears. She said that one day, when I learned to control my gift, I'd be able to do things she never could. She was so proud, even when I accidentally shattered every glass in the house or made the pack's dogs howl for hours. A laugh bubbled up, watery but real. "Alpha or not, my father threatened to send me to live with the mountain wolves if I didn't learn some restraint." "Did you?" "Learn restraint?" I was getting there. I'd started formal training with a soundweaver from a neighboring pack, someone old enough to remember the techniques. Her expression darkened. "But then Ronan came, and she couldn't finish. And your training was cut short," Cassian finished gently, "which is why you can't fully control your power now." She nodded mutely. "We'll fix that." His certainty was absolute. "I have contacts. Old wolves who remember the ancient ways, who studied with soundweavers before they became rare. We'll find someone to teach you. And if I can't learn, if I'm too broken to, you're not broken." He said it like a law of nature. "But even if you were, even if you never gained full control, you'd still be mine, Elara. Still my mate, still my queen. Your power doesn't define your worth." The words settled something in her chest, some tight knot of fear she'd carried so long she'd forgotten it was there. "I want to believe you," she whispered. "Then believe me." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "One truth at a time. Start with this one. You're safe here. In my home, under my protection, with me. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." A knock at the door interrupted them. Cassian's expression shifted instantly from gentle to commanding. "Enter." Lord Thorne stepped inside, his scarred face grave. His eyes swept the room, taking in Elara's position on the king's bed, their joined hands, and something like understanding crossed his features. "Your Majesty, Lady Elara." He bowed to them both, and the fact that he'd bowed to her, a servant, made Elara's breath catch. "Apologies for the intrusion, but we have a situation." Cassian was on his feet instantly. "Report. A delegation has arrived from the Eastern Territories. Alpha Ronan Blackthorn is requesting an audience." Thorne's eyes cut to Elara, and she saw pity there. "He says it's urgent. Something about a missing Omega he's been searching for 7 years. The blood drained from Elara's face. No, it was too soon. He couldn't possibly know she was here. He knows, she breathed. Oh gods, he knows. Cassian's expression went glacial. Shadows literally gathered at his feet, responding to his rage. How long until the audience? He's requested midday. I put him off as long as I could without being overtly suspicious. Good, Cassian turned to Elara, and despite the cold fury in his eyes, his touch was gentle as he cupped her face. Listen to me. You don't have to face him. I can make him leave, ban him from these territories. No. The word came out stronger than she'd meant. If you do that, he'll know for certain I'm here. He'll lay siege or send assassins or... She took a shaking breath. I have to face him eventually. Maybe it's better to do it now, while I'm unprepared and he doesn't know I've bonded with you. Absolutely not. Cassian's voice brooked no argument. You're not going anywhere near him until... Until what? Until I'm trained? Until I'm strong enough? She pulled back, looking up at him. That could take months, years. And in the meantime, he's here, in your home, hunting me. Better to confront him now, in a controlled environment, than to spend the next year waiting for the other shoe to drop. She has a point, Thorn interjected carefully. If we turn him away without cause, it'll raise questions. But if we allow the audience and he sees no sign of his missing Omega, he may give up the search and leave. He won't see her, Cassian said flatly. She'll be nowhere near that throne room. Actually, Elara's heart hammered, but she forced the words out. I should be there. As a servant, pouring wine, being invisible, the way I've been for 7 years. She met Cassian's thunderous expression. Think about it. He's looking for a powerful Soundweaver Omega. Someone in hiding, someone afraid. He's not looking for a meek serving girl who whispers and keeps her eyes down. I can hide in plain sight, the same way I have been. He'll scent you, Cassian growled. Not if I take enough suppressants. Not if I'm careful. She grabbed his hands, desperate to make him understand. Let me do this. Let me prove I'm not just a victim waiting to be rescued. I've survived 7 years by being invisible. I can survive 1 more day. For a long moment, Cassian stared at her, conflict warring in his storm-gray eyes. Then he turned to Thorn. Double the guard. I want warriors in every shadow, every corner. If Blackthorn so much as looks at her wrong, he won't make it out of the citadel alive. Thorn finished. Understood. Cassian looked back at Elara, his jaw tight. If you do this, you stay in character. Whispers only. Eyes down. You give me no reason to connect you to him. And the moment I sense danger, you leave. No arguments. Agreed. I'm serious, Elara. 1 hint of threat, and I'm getting you out of there. His hands tightened on hers. I just found you. I'm not losing you to that bastard because you wanted to prove something. You won't lose me. She said it with more confidence than she felt. I've been hiding from monsters for 7 years. I know how to survive them. His expression softened marginally. You shouldn't have to just survive anymore. You should get to live. Then help me do this, she urged. Help me face him. And then maybe I can finally start living. The throne room of the northern citadel was a masterpiece of intimidation. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow. Massive stone pillars carved with the histories of 1,000 battles lined the walls, and the throne itself obsidian inlaid with silver, positioned on a day that required supplicants to look up radiated cold authority. This was where the Alpha King held court, where he passed judgment, where he reminded the world exactly who ruled the northern kingdoms. Elara had cleaned this room hundreds of times in 7 years. She knew every crack in the marble floor, every stain on the ancient tapestries, every spot where the morning light hit just right. But she'd never been here during an actual audience, never seen it filled with the weight of power and politics. She stood now in the shadows near the servants' entrance, a pitcher of wine in her trembling hands, her servant's gray dress freshly pressed, her hair hidden beneath a plain cap. She'd taken triple her normal dose of suppressants, choked down herbs that made her stomach cramp and her head pound. Her scent would be nothing but cleaning soap and subservience. She was invisible. She had to be invisible. Steady. A voice murmured beside her. She glanced at the elderly servant woman next to her, Marta, who'd worked in the citadel longer than Elara had been alive. "You're pale as death, girl. If you faint during the audience, the king will have all our heads." "I'm fine," Elara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Like hell you are." But Marta's wrinkled hand gave hers a quick squeeze. "Just remember your furniture. You exist to pour wine and fade into the walls. Nobody looks at furniture." That was exactly what Elara was counting on. The massive doors at the far end of the throne room swung open, and her heart stopped. Alpha Ronan Blackthorn entered like a conquering warlord, which was fitting since that's essentially what he was. He was tall, not as tall as Cassian, but imposing nonetheless, with dark auburn hair shot through with silver, and a face that would have been handsome, if not for the cruelty in his cold green eyes. He wore black leather and furs, and the warriors flanking him moved with the disciplined precision of killers. Elara's hands tightened on the wine pitcher until her knuckles went white. That was him. The man who'd murdered her parents, who'd burned her pack, who'd laughed as children screamed. 7 years, and she remembered every line of his face, every note of his voice. Her breath came too fast. The edges of her vision darkened. "Easy," Marta hissed. "Breathe, girl, breathe." She forced air into her lungs. One breath, another. She was invisible. She was furniture. He wouldn't see her. King Cassian sat on his throne, a picture of dangerous relaxation. Lord Thorne stood at his right hand, and 24 royal guards lined the walls, their hands never far from their weapons. The king's expression was carefully neutral, but Elara could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed once, just once, on the throne's armrest. He was furious, tightly controlled, but furious. "Alpha Blackthorn." Cassian's voice filled the throne room, neither warm nor cold. "You requested an audience. Speak." Ronan approached the day, stopping at the prescribed distance. He didn't bow a calculated insult that made several guards shift threateningly, but he did incline his head in acknowledgement. "Your Majesty, thank you for receiving me." His voice was smooth, cultured, nothing like the snarling monster Elara remembered from that night. "I come on a delicate matter, one that requires your wisdom and, if I may be so bold, your assistance. Go on." 7 years ago, my pack absorbed the territories of Silverpine after their unfortunate collapse. Ronan's expression was perfectly crafted regret. A tragedy, truly. Disease swept through them, I'm told. Very few survivors. Elara's nails cut into her palms. Disease. He was claiming disease, not massacre. The lie was so enormous, so brazen. "I was under the impression," Cassian said mildly, "that the Silverpine pack was destroyed by an armed assault, not disease." Something flickered in Ronan's eyes. Surprise? Suspicion? "There have been rumors to that effect, yes. Unfortunate rumors spread by those who profit from discord. But I assure your Majesty, the official reports can be purchased." Cassian's voice dropped a degree. "As can silence. Continue with why you're here, Blackthorn." A muscle ticked in Ronan's jaw, but he smiled. "Of course. Among the Silverpine wolves, there was one survivor, an Omega girl, barely 18 at the time. She fled into the wilderness before we could offer her sanctuary. My pack has been searching for her for 7 years. We wish to honor the memory of Silverpine by protecting their last remaining member." The lies dripped like poison. Elara wanted to scream, to expose him. To a servant moved, and suddenly Elara was being gently pushed forward. "Wine service," Marta whispered. "Go. Now." "No, not now." She couldn't. But servants obeyed. Servants didn't question. Refusing would draw attention. On legs that felt like water, Elara emerged from the shadows, her eyes locked on the stone floor. She moved with the practiced efficiency of 7 years, approaching the day where goblets waited on a side table. Her hands shook as she poured wine into the first cup, crimson liquid almost spilling. She was 15 feet from Ronan Blackthorn, 15 feet from the monster who'd destroyed her life. "This girl," Cassian was saying, his voice carefully controlled. "What makes you think she's in my territories?" "Reports, Your Majesty," whispers of a young Omega matching her description, "traveling through the eastern edges of your kingdom years ago." Ronan's voice was closer now. He'd moved nearer to the day, which meant nearer to the wine service. She would be 25 now. Dark hair, brown eyes, exceptionally quiet, shy, perhaps traumatized by what she witnessed. Elara's hand trembled so violently she had to set down the pitcher. She was going to break. She was going to shatter right here, give herself away. A presence materialized beside her. Lord Thorne, taking the pitcher from her shaking hands. "Steady, girl," he murmured, quiet enough that only she could hear. His positioning put his body between her and Ronan, a subtle shield. "I have thousands of servants," Cassian said. "Many of them Omegas from the Eastern Territories seeking work. You'll have to be more specific." "Of course." Ronan's footsteps moved closer to Thorne, closer to her. "This particular Omega has a unique trait. Her mother was a soundweaver, and the girl inherited the gift. She would be careful to hide it, likely taking suppressants, keeping her voice quiet." A pause. "But the bloodline doesn't lie. She would have. An unusual scent, even masked. Like moonflowers and winter rain." Cassian's expression didn't change, but Elara saw his fingers tighten on the throne. "Soundweavers are rare. If such a creature were in my citadel, I would know." "Would you, though?" Ronan's tone held gentle challenge. "Forgive my boldness, Your Majesty, but this girl is prey. She's survived 7 years by being invisible. She could be anywhere, anyone." His footsteps moved again, circling. "She could be in this very room, and we might not recognize her." Elara's breathing stopped. "Don't look up. Don't move." "Furniture. Your furniture." "An interesting theory," Cassian said coldly. "But unless you have proof, I have her scent." Ronan's voice turned sharp. "Faint as it is, I'd recognize it anywhere. And Your Majesty," his footsteps stopped, directly beside her. "I'm catching traces of it right now." The world tilted. No. The suppressants should have worked. She'd taken so many. "Are you suggesting," Cassian said, his voice dropping to something lethal, "that I'm harboring a fugitive?" "Not harboring, Your Majesty. Perhaps simply unaware." Ronan's hand reached out, and Elara saw it from the corner of her downcast vision, reaching for her chin, to tilt her face up, to see her properly. She had 1 second to make a choice: run and confirm his suspicions, stay and be discovered, or her training kicked in. 7 years of playing meek, 7 years of being no one. She didn't pull away. She flinched, a genuine terrified reaction to a strange male touching her, and dropped into a clumsy curtsy, the wine pitcher tumbling from her hands. It shattered on the marble floor with a sound like breaking bones. "Clumsy girl," Marta's voice rang out, sharp with feigned anger. She rushed forward, grabbing Elara's arm and yanking her back. "Your Majesty, forgive her. She's new, still learning." "New?" Ronan's eyes were on Elara now, studying her. She kept her face down, kept her breathing shallow, let her body shake with genuine terror. "She smells like soap and fear," Lord Thorne interrupted smoothly, as most servants do when clumsy mistakes bring them to the Alpha King's attention. He stepped between them again, his massive frame blocking Ronan's view. "Your Majesty, shall I have her removed for her incompetence?" Cassian's eyes met Elara's for just a fraction of a second. She saw rage there, barely leashed. Saw the wolf clawing at its cage, desperate to protect its mate. But his voice, when he spoke, was bored. "Just clean up the mess. And find me servants who don't have palsy." He waved dismissively. "Blackthorn, your search grows tiresome. Do you have any actual evidence this girl is in my territories? Or are you wasting my time?" Ronan hesitated, his gaze still on Elara as Marta dragged her back toward the shadows. The scent is faint. Very faint. It could be coincidence." "Coincidence," Cassian repeated flatly. "You're tracking 7-year-old scent memories and coincidences." He stood, and the temperature in the room dropped. "Let me be clear, Alpha Blackthorn. You've come into my home, insulted my hospitality by suggesting I harbor fugitives, and disrupted my court with paranoid accusations. Unless you have proof, actual, tangible proof, I suggest you take your search elsewhere." "Your Majesty, I meant no offense." And yet offense was given. Cassian descended the day steps, each one deliberate. The Silverpine Pack's destruction was a tragedy. If survivors exist, they're welcome in my territories as refugees, not prized to be hunted. He stopped directly in front of Ronan, and the height difference was notable. "Tell me, Blackthorn, why are you so desperate to find this one Omega?" Ronan's expression flickered just for a moment. She's the last of her pack. It's my duty. Cassian's smile was cold as winter death. How noble. And it has nothing to do with her being a bide. Soundweaver? Nothing to do with the power such a bloodline represents? I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Cassian's eyes flashed gold. Soundweavers are weapons, Blackthorn. Rare, powerful weapons. And you're very interested in collecting weapons, aren't you? First the Silverpine territory, with its strategic resources. Then their gifted Omega. What's next? My throne? The accusation hung in the air like a blade. Ronan's warriors tensed, hands moving to hilts. The royal guards responded instantly, weapons appearing like magic. Your Majesty, I would never. Of course you wouldn't. Cassian's voice was soft, deadly, because you're smart enough to know that coming for my throne would end with your head on a spike, just as you should be smart enough to know that I don't appreciate being interrogated in my own court. He turned his back, a calculated insult, and returned to his throne. Your audience is concluded. If you find actual proof of this Omega's location, return with it. Until then, stop wasting my time. Dismissed. Publicly, brutally dismissed. Ronan's face flushed with humiliation and rage, but he bowed stiffly. As your Majesty commands. Thank you for your wisdom. The sarcasm was barely veiled. Several guards moved forward threateningly, but Cassian raised a hand, stopping them. Oh, and Blackthorn? The Alpha King's voice stopped the other Alpha mid-turn. If I discover you've been lying about the circumstances of Silverpine's destruction, if I find evidence of foul play, I'll remember this conversation, and I'll be considerably less hospitable. His smile was all teeth. Travel safely. The roads can be so dangerous this time of year. The threat couldn't have been clearer if he'd written it in blood. Ronan's jaw worked, fury and fear warring in his expression, but he nodded and strode from the throne room, his warriors following. The moment the doors closed, Cassian was moving. He crossed the throne room in seconds, shadows literally trailing in his wake, and found Elara in the servants' alcove where Marta was fussing over the spilled wine. Out. He commanded the other servants. All of you. Now. They fled like mice before a cat. Only Marta hesitated, looking at Elara with concern, but Elara nodded shakily. The old woman squeezed her shoulder once and left. Then they were alone. Cassian, Elara, Thorn, and the handful of guards who knew the truth. Are you hurt? Cassian's hands were on her face, tilting it up, checking for damage. Did he touch you? Did he? I'm fine. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. I'm okay. You're not okay. You're shaking like a leaf. He pulled her against his chest, and she went, burying her face in his shirt. The scent of him, pine and winter storms, anchored her, brought her back from the edge of panic. He almost recognized me, she whispered into his chest. If I hadn't dropped the pitcher, you did. Exactly what you needed to do. His hand stroked her hair, soothing. You played the role perfectly. He suspected, but he couldn't be certain. He won't stop looking. Elara pulled back enough to meet his eyes. You heard him. He's desperate to find me. And now he knows I'm somewhere in your territories. Let him look. Cassian's expression was granite. He won't find you. And even if he does, he'll have to go through me first. Your Majesty, Thorn interjected carefully. Blackthorn will report this audience to the High Council. He'll spin it as you protecting a fugitive, harboring a wanted Omega. She's not wanted for any crime, Cassian snapped. She's a witness. He wants silenced. There's a difference. The council won't see it that way, not without proof of the massacre. Thorn's scarred face was grave. We need evidence. Something that proves Ronan lied about the disease, that proves he ordered the attack. I'm the evidence, Elara said quietly. Both males turned to her. I saw him. I heard him give the orders. I can testify. Not yet. Cassian's voice was firm. Not until you're trained, until you can control your power. The moment you open your mouth in front of the council, they'll feel what you are. And Soundweavers terrify people, Elara. They'll use your power against you, claim you're influencing testimony, that your word can't be trusted. He was right. She knew he was right. But the unfairness of it surviving 7 years, finally having the truth within reach, but unable to speak it. Then what do we do? She asked. I can't hide forever, and I can't let him get away with murdering my entire pack. Cassian exchanged a look with Thorn. Some silent communication passed between them. We find another way to prove what he did, Cassian said finally. Documents, witnesses from his own pack, inconsistencies in his story. Thorn, send scouts to the Eastern Territories. Quiet ones. I want to know everything about Ronan. Blackthorn, his movements, his finances, who he's aligned with, who he's threatened. Someone knows something. Someone always knows. And in the meantime, Elara pressed, Ronan's not stupid. He'll escalate. If he can't find me openly, he'll try other methods. Which is why you're not leaving this citadel. Cassian's tone brooked no argument. From now on, you stay within the protected wings. No more cleaning duties where just anyone can see you. No more pretending to be a servant. But if I disappear, if I suddenly stop showing up to work, people will notice. They'll ask questions. Then we give them answers. He turned to Thorn. Spread word that I've taken a personal attendant. A companion. No one will question it. Kings have companions. Elara's cheeks heated. You want people to think I'm your mistress? I want people to think you're under my direct protection, which you are. His hand cupped her cheek. And in truth, you're my mate. My queen-to-be. That's far. More than a mistress, Elara. The council will still object, Thorn warned. A servant with no bloodline, no training, then the council can object. Cassian's eyes flashed gold. I've waited 2 centuries for my mate. I'm not hiding her to appease political sensibilities. Cassian, Elara placed her hand over his. I know you want to protect me, but think about this strategically. If you claim me publicly now, before we have proof about Ronan, before I'm trained, we lose the element of surprise. He'll know for certain I'm here, and he'll find a way to strike before we're ready. She could see the war in his expression, the alpha wanting to claim and protect, the king knowing she was right. How long? He finally asked. How long do you need to be ready? I don't know. Weeks? Months? I've never had proper training. Then we accelerate. He turned to Thorn. Find me a sound weaver. I don't care how old, how far away. Find someone who can teach her control. The nearest one I know of is, I don't care where they are. Bring them here. Offer whatever they want. Gold, land, protection. Just get them here. His focus returned to Elara. You're going to learn to weaponize that voice, little mate. And then we're going to use it to bury Ronan Blackthorn so deep he'll never see daylight again. The promise in his voice sent shivers through her. This was the Shadow King, the alpha who'd ended wars and toppled kingdoms. And he was on her side. What do I do until then? She asked. I can't just hide in your rooms. Why not? His smile was slight. You've been invisible for 7 years. A few more weeks of strategic invisibility won't kill you. And this time, you'll be invisible by choice, not fear. There was something appealing about that. Not hiding because she had to, but because it was tactical. Not disappearing because she was worthless, but because she was too valuable to risk. All right, she agreed. But I want to help with the investigation. I know things about the massacre, details that might help your scouts know what to look for. Done. He glanced at Thorn. Set up a secure location. Somewhere she can meet with the investigators without being seen. The old war room in the West Tower, Thorn suggested. Nobody uses it anymore. Easy to guard, only one entrance. Perfect. Cassian's attention returned fully to Elara, and the intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. You're not alone in this anymore. Do you understand? Everything I have, my power, my resources, my warriors, it's all yours. We're going to make him pay, Elara. For every life he took, every child he orphaned. He's going to answer for all of it. And if the council doesn't believe us, if they choose political alliance over justice, his smile turned cold. Then I'll remind them why they gave me a crown in the first place. Because sometimes, justice requires a monster. The week that followed passed in a strange blur. Elara moved from her servants' quarters to a suite of rooms adjacent to the king's, officially a companion's quarters, but everyone knew what it meant. The whispers followed her everywhere. The servant who caught the Alpha King's eye, the nobody who'd somehow bewitched the most powerful wolf alive. Let them whisper. It was better than the truth. True to his word, Cassian had located a soundweaver willing to make the journey north. Master Kieran was ancient. How ancient? Elara couldn't guess. But his eyes held the weight of centuries. He was blind, his sight stolen by age, but his hearing was preternatural. "Sit," he commanded during their first session in the sealed training room Cassian had prepared. "And sing." "I can't just sing," Elara protested. "The last time I used my voice properly, people died. Which is why we're in a room carved from mountain stone, lined with dampening runes older than your grandfather's grandfather." He tapped his staff impatiently. "The walls will contain whatever you do. Now sing. Something simple. A lullaby, perhaps." Elara glanced at Cassian, who stood in the corner, arms crossed. He nodded encouragingly. Taking a shaking breath, she began. "Hush now, little wolf, under moon's pale light. Stop." Kieran's voice cracked like a whip. "You're holding back. Your voice wants to soar, and you're strangling it. Because if I let go, you'll learn control. But first, you must learn to release." He moved closer, his blind eyes somehow still piercing. "You've spent 7 years making yourself small. Now I'm telling you to be large. Take up space. Let the power out." "I'm afraid." "Good. Fear means you respect the gift." His expression softened slightly. "But fear can't be your master forever, child. At some point, you must become the thing you're afraid of, or else more powerful monsters will eat you alive." She thought of Ronan, thought of his cold green eyes, his lies, his certainty that she was prey to be hunted. Something hot and angry burned in her chest. "Again," Kieran said. "But this time, mean it." Elara took another breath, deeper this time. When she opened her mouth, she didn't hold back. "Hush now, little wolf, under moon's pale light. Dream of running free through the endless night." Her voice swelled, filling the chamber. The stone walls hummed in response. Cassian's eyes widened, and Kieran smiled. "There," he breathed. "That's the real you. Powerful, untamed, glorious." He tapped his staff again. "Now we teach you how to aim it." The training sessions became Elara's new routine. 3 hours each morning with Kieran, learning to shape her voice, to control the frequencies, to weaponize sound without destroying everything in her path. It was exhausting, frustrating work. More than once, she shattered the training dummy Cassian had provided. Twice, she made Kieran's ears bleed before he could raise his shields. But slowly, painfully, she improved. In the afternoons, she met with Thorne's investigators, grizzled warriors, who treated her with surprising respect, as she recounted everything she remembered from the massacre. Dates, times, which warriors wore Ronan's colors, what she'd overheard before the attack. "He planned it for weeks," she told them during one session. "I remember my father receiving increasingly aggressive letters, demands to surrender territory. Ronan gave him a deadline: surrender by the new moon or face consequences." "And your father refused," Thorne prompted gently. "He tried to negotiate, offered shared resources, trade agreements, but Ronan didn't want compromise. He wanted conquest." Her hands clenched. 3 days before the deadline, our scouts reported Ronan's warriors massing at the border. My father sent a messenger to the High Council, requesting intervention. And the messenger never arrived. We learned later he was found dead on the road, killed by rogues. She met Thorne's eyes, but there were no rogues in that territory, only Ronan's warriors. Thorne made notes, his expression grave. "If we can prove he intercepted official council communications, it's still not enough," one of the investigators said. "Without the messenger's body, without proof of tampering, it's circumstantial." "Then, we keep digging," Cassian said from where he sat in the corner, always present during her debriefings. "There's a trail. There's always a trail." And in the evenings, when the training and investigating were done, Elara found herself in Cassian's private study. Sometimes they talked about pack politics, about his centuries of rule, about the mate bond growing stronger between them each day. Sometimes they simply existed in companionable silence, him working through documents while she read from his extensive library. It was during one of these quiet evenings that Cassian suddenly looked up from his papers, his expression strange. "What?" Elara asked, setting aside the book she'd been reading. "I just realized something." He rose, moving to sit beside her on the low couch. 2 weeks ago, You couldn't speak above a whisper. You flinched at every loud sound. You made yourself invisible everywhere you went. And now? Now you're training to weaponize your voice. You're strategizing with my war council. You're meeting my eyes when we speak. His hand found hers. You're not hiding anymore, Elara. She considered that. He was right. At some point in the past 2 weeks, the constant fear had, not disappeared but muted, transformed into something else. Determination, maybe. Purpose. I'm still afraid, she admitted. Every time I think about facing Ronan, about testifying before the council. But you're not letting the fear control you anymore. He squeezed her hand. That's what strength is, little mate. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it win. Before she could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Thorn entered without waiting for permission, which meant it was urgent. We found something, he said without preamble. One of the scouts tracked down a former Blackthorn warrior. He left the pack 2 years ago, moved to the far territories. He's willing to talk. Cassian was on his feet instantly. About the massacre? He says he was there. Says he'll testify about what really happened. What orders were given. Thorn's scarred face was grim. But he won't do it publicly. He's too afraid of Ronan's reach. He'll only speak to you, Your Majesty. And, his eyes cut to Elara. To her, he wants to see the survivor, to know she's real. Elara's heart raced. A witness. An actual witness who could corroborate her story. Where is he? Cassian demanded. 3 days' ride north. He's hiding in a mountain village, using a false name. Then we leave tonight. Cassian was already moving toward the door. Have my fastest riders ready. A small group, nothing that would draw attention. I'm coming with you, Elara said. Both males turned to her. Absolutely not, Cassian said. It's too dangerous. If Ronan has scouts in the area, then they'll be looking for me traveling alone, not with the Alpha King's retinue. She stood, meeting his storm-gray gaze. This witness wants to see me, wants proof I exist. I need to be there, Cassian. This might be our only chance. She's right, Thorn said reluctantly. The witness was specific. He'll only talk if the Silver Pine Omega is present. Cassian's jaw worked, conflict written across his face. If something happens to you, then you'll tear apart whoever's responsible. She moved to him, placing her hand on his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palm. But nothing's going to happen. I trust you to keep me safe. The words settled something in his expression. He covered her hand with his, holding it against his heart. 3 days there. 1 day for the meeting. 3 days. Back, he said finally. You don't leave my sight. You follow every order without question. And if I sense even a hint of danger, we abort immediately. Agreed. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers in that gesture that had become theirs. You're going to be the death of me, little mate. Or the making of you, she whispered back. His laugh was low, rough. That too. They left under cover of darkness. Cassian, Elara, Thorn, and 6 of the king's most trusted warriors. Elara rode pressed against Cassian's chest, his arms bracketing her, his warmth chasing away the night's chill. They moved fast, stopping only briefly to rest the horses. The mountain village was exactly as remote as Thorn had described, a collection of maybe 20 buildings clinging to a steep slope, accessible only by a narrow mountain pass. The kind of place where people went to disappear. The witness lived in a small cabin on the village's edge. He was young, maybe 30, with the haunted eyes of someone who'd seen too much. When he opened the door and saw Elara, his face crumpled. Gods, he breathed. You're real. You're actually real. You know me? Elara asked. I saw you that night. You were running through the flames, screaming for your parents. His voice broke. I tried to stop it. Tried to tell my unit commander that slaughtering women and children wasn't honorable combat. He told me to shut up and follow orders or join the corpses. Cassian's hand tightened on Elara's shoulder. You were there. You witnessed Alpha Blackthorn give the order to massacre the Silver Pine Pack? The warrior, his name was Cole, nodded miserably. He gathered the unit commanders 3 days before, said the Silver Pine Alpha had insulted him, that they needed to be taught a lesson. When one commander asked if we were just taking territory, Ronan laughed. Said there wouldn't be anyone left to take territory from. Can you testify to this? Thorn demanded. Before the High Council? I'll testify. Cole's expression hardened. I've carried this guilt for 7 years. Every night I see their faces, the cubs, the elders, the omegas who couldn't even shift to defend themselves. If my testimony can bring that bastard down, I'll risk whatever I have to risk. Relief flooded through Elara so intensely her knees nearly buckled. Finally, justice. We'll need you to travel back to the citadel with us, Cassian said. You'll be under my protection. A howl split the night. Close. 2 close. Every warrior's head snapped up. Cassian pushed Elara behind him instantly, his body a shield. That's not one of ours, Thorn growled. Another howl answered the first, then another, coming from multiple directions. We're surrounded, one of the warriors reported grimly. At least 30 wolves. Maybe more. Cole's face went white. He found me. Ronan found me. How? Cassian demanded. How did he know you were here? I don't know. I was careful. Cole's eyes widened in horror. The letter. I sent a letter to my brother, told him where I was in case. Oh gods. Ronan must have intercepted it. The howls were getting closer. Elara could hear snarls now, the sound of paws on stone. Get inside, Cassian commanded. Barricade the doors. Thorn, form defensive positions around the cabin. No one gets through. Your Majesty, there are too many, Thorn protested. We need to run, get you and the girl to safety. I'm not running from that coward. Cassian's eyes blazed gold, power rolling off him in waves. He wants a fight? Let's give him one. Cassian, no. Elara grabbed his arm. This is exactly what he wants. If you fight Ronan here, in front of witnesses, it becomes a political incident. The council will have to intervene. I don't care about politics right now. I care about keeping you alive. The first warrior burst through the tree line massive, black-furred, with Ronan's colors on a harness, then another. 30 warriors became 40, 50. This wasn't a scouting party. This was an army, and leading them, a wolf larger than the rest with distinctive auburn fur, was Ronan himself. He shifted to human form, shameless in his nakedness, flanked by his warriors. His cold green eyes locked onto the cabin onto Elara, visible through the window. Your Majesty, he called out, voice carrying easily. I apologize for the intrusion, but I've tracked my missing Omega to this location. Surely you understand I'm simply collecting what's mine. She's not yours, Cassian snarled, stepping out to face him. Shadows gathered at his feet, responding to his rage. She's never been yours. Ronan's smile was triumphant. So you do know her. How interesting. I was told you were harboring no one, yet here you are, 3 days from your citadel, defending a nobody servant. He tilted his head mockingly. Care to explain why the Alpha King is so invested in protecting a worthless Omega? The trap was sprung. If Cassian claimed Elara publicly, he'd be admitting he lied during the previous audience. If he didn't claim her, Ronan would argue he had no legal right to keep her from her concerned pack leader. I'm invested, Cassian said coldly, because she's a witness to your war crimes, and you're not taking her anywhere. War crimes? How dramatic. Ronan's expression hardened. The Silverpine pack died of disease. Everyone knows this. Unless, his eyes glittered dangerously, unless you have proof otherwise. Perhaps a witness willing to testify? He knew. Somehow he knew about Cole, which is why I'm here, Ronan continued smoothly. To collect that witness. Can't have lying soldiers spreading false accusations, now can we? You're not touching him either, Cassian growled. Then we have a problem. Ronan gestured, and his warriors closed ranks, forming a tight circle around the cabin. Because I'm not leaving without what I came for. The girl and the traitor who would testify against me. You'll have to go through me first. If you insist. Ronan's smile was vicious. Though killing the Alpha King would be unfortunate. The council frowns on such things. But defending oneself against an unprovoked attack? He shrugged. That's just survival. It was a setup. Everything was a setup. If Cassian attacked first, Ronan could claim self-defense. If Cassian didn't attack, Ronan would take Elara and Cole by force. There was no winning scenario here. Unless, Wait. Elara stepped forward, ignoring Cassian's hiss of protest. Her heart hammered, but her voice was steady as she'd trained it to be. I'll make you a deal, Ronan. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. Single combat. You and me. If you win, I surrender myself willingly. No more running, no more hiding. She lifted her shin. But if I win, you confess everything to the High Council. Every order you gave, every life you took. Full testimony, witnessed, and binding. Elara. No, Cassian grabbed her arm. It's the only way, she said quietly, meeting his storm-gray eyes. Otherwise, we all die here, and he gets what he wants anyway. You can't fight him. You're not trained, I don't need to fight him. She smiled, and it was sharp with newfound confidence. I just need my voice. Understanding dawned in Cassian's expression. Then terror. You're not ready. Kieran said you need more time. We don't have more time. She turned back to Ronan. Do you accept? Single combat, winner take all? Ronan laughed, long and cruel. You want to fight me? Little Omega who couldn't even defend her own pack? I was untrained then. I'm not untrained now. Something flickered in his expression. Uncertainty. He'd seen what her voice could do 7 years ago. 5 warriors dropped dead in seconds. But that had been wild, uncontrolled power. He had no way of knowing if she'd learned to harness it. Traditional combat, he said finally. Claws and teeth. No magic, no tricks. No. She shook her head. My terms. We use whatever weapons we were born with. You have your strength and your alpha dominance. I have my voice. That's the deal. Ronan's jaw worked. If he refused, he'd look like a coward. But if he accepted, and she was actually trained. Fine, he said finally. But when I rip your throat out, little Omega, I want you to die, knowing you gave yourself to me willingly. When I win, Elara countered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I want you to die, knowing that the worthless Omega destroyed you. Cassian's hand was still on her arm, his grip almost painful. Elara, please, don't do this. Let me fight him. You can't. If you kill him without council approval, you'll be tried for murder. But me? She met his desperate gaze. I'm nobody, remember? Just a witness defending herself against her pack's murderer. Self-defense. The council. Can't fault that. You could die. I could, but I won't. She placed her hand over his heart, feeling it thunder. You taught me I'm not broken. Now let me prove I'm not prey either. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then he pulled her close, pressing a fierce kiss to her forehead. If you die, I'm burning his entire bloodline to ash. Deal. She stepped away from his protection, walking into the open space between the two groups. Ronan moved to meet her, stripping off his harness, preparing to shift. Stay human, Elara commanded. I want you to hear every word. His lip curled. Arrogant for someone about to die. We'll see. They stood 10 feet apart. Cassian and Thorn had positioned themselves at the edge of the clearing, ready to intervene if Ronan broke the terms. Cole watched from the cabin window, his face pale. Final chance to surrender, Ronan said. I'll make it quick if you give up now. I'm done surrendering. Elara took a breath, feeling the power gather in her chest. That music she'd suppressed for 7 years. And I'm done being afraid of you. She opened her mouth and sung. The first note that left Elara's lips wasn't loud. It was a whisper, almost tender, the same whisper she'd used for 7 years to hide. But this whisper carried layers, harmonics that shouldn't exist in a single voice, frequencies that bypassed ears and spoke directly to the soul. Ronan laughed. Is that supposed to frighten me? Then the second note hit. This one wasn't a whisper. It was a command, woven with every lesson Kieran had beaten into her, every hour of training, every ounce of rage she'd carried since that night 7 years ago. The sound didn't just fill the clearing, it reshaped it, making the air thick and heavy. Ronan's laugh died. His legs trembled. What? He started. Elara's third note cut him off. This one targeted his wolf directly, that primal part of him that recognized predator from prey. She sung the language of dominance, of submission, of ancient pack law written in frequencies older than words. Ronan dropped to one knee, his face contorting with fury and confusion. Stop, You told my father to surrender. Elara song, her voice building like a storm. Each word carried weight, carried power, carried 7 years of silence breaking free. You told him he had until the new moon. You gave him a choice you never intended to honor. Lies, Ronan gasped, fighting against the invisible force pressing down on him. You sent warriors in the night, 300 of them, against a peaceful pack of barely 200. Her voice rose, harmonics layering, creating pressure that made the very air vibrate. You ordered them to kill everyone. No survivors, no mercy, no witnesses. I'll kill you. He tried to shift, tried to call his wolf, but Elara's voice wrapped around his transformation, stopping it cold. This was what Kieran had taught her, not just to destroy, but to control, to command, to make the world bend to her will through sound alone. You murdered my mother while she tried to protect the cubs. Each word was a hammer blow. You killed my father while he begged for his people's lives. You laughed while children burned. Ronan's warriors shifted restlessly, uncertain. Some were covering their ears, but Elara's voice wasn't something you could block out. It was in the ground, in the air, in the blood. And now, Elara sung, her voice reaching a crescendo that made the trees shake. You're going to confess. The command in those words was absolute, ancient, undeniable. Ronan's mouth opened against his will. He fought it, veins bulging in his neck. I ordered the massacre. The words came out strangled, forced, but witnessed by 50 wolves. Everything, Elara commanded, her voice unrelenting. Every detail, every order, every death. And Ronan spoke, compelled by a power older than alpha dominance, older than pack law. He confessed to intercepting council messages, to planning the attack for weeks, to personally executing Elara's parents. Each word was dragged from him like pulling teeth, but he couldn't stop. His own warriors stared in horror as their alpha condemned himself. When the confession was complete, when every crime had been laid bare, Elara let her voice drop. The pressure eased. Ronan collapsed fully to the ground, gasping. You bitch, he lunged at her, claws extending. He made it 3 feet before Cassian's hand closed around his throat, shadows erupting like living things. The Alpha King had moved faster than sight, putting himself between Ronan and Elara. Single combat is over, Cassian said, his voice arctic. She won. You confessed. And now, his grip tightened. You face the consequences. The council, Ronan choked out, will hear your confession, witnessed by my warriors, your warriors, and recorded by my scribe. Cassian gestured, and Elara noticed for the first time that Thorn had. He've been writing frantically throughout the entire confrontation. You've just signed your own death warrant, Blackthorn. He released Ronan, letting him collapse. Then Cassian turned to Ronan's warriors. Your alpha is a confessed war criminal. You can stand with him and face justice, or you can kneel to the true authority and live. One by one, Ronan's warriors knelt. They weren't fools. They'd just heard their alpha confess to crimes that carried a death sentence. Ronan looked around at his betrayed, kneeling army and let out a howl of pure rage. He shifted then, his wolf form massive and desperate, launching himself not at Cassian but at Elara, one last attempt to take her with him. He never reached her. Cassian's shifted form intercepted him mid-air, a wolf of pure shadow and silver, twice Ronan's size, ancient and terrifying. The 2 alphas collided with earth-shaking force. It wasn't even close to a fair fight. Within seconds, Cassian had Ronan pinned, jaws locked around his throat. One squeeze would end it. Cassian. Wait, Elara called out. Both wolves turned to her. He doesn't get the mercy of a quick death. He gets to face the council. He gets to be judged publicly, so everyone knows what he did. Cassian's wolf eyes met hers, asking the question. I'm not like him, she said quietly. I won't become a murderer to stop a murderer. Let justice do its work. For a moment she thought he might kill Ronan anyway. The Shadow King was not known for mercy. But then Cassian released his hold, shifting back to human form. He looked at her with such pride, such fierce love, it took her breath away. As my queen commands, he said simply. The trial before the High Council took 3 days. Ronan's confession, witnessed and documented, was presented. Cole testified about the orders he'd heard. Elara truly spoke, using her real voice about what she'd witnessed that night 7 years ago. The council had no choice. The evidence was overwhelming. Ronan, Blackthorn was sentenced to death for unprovoked pack annihilation, murder, and conspiracy. His lands were forfeit, his pack absorbed into the territories of neighboring alphas who'd sworn to treat the survivors fairly. And Elara finally allowed herself to breathe. 3 months later, she stood in the same throne room where she'd once cleaned floors, but everything was different. She wore a gown of midnight blue, a crown of silver and moonstone resting on her dark hair. The assembled alphas from all 7 territories watched as Cassian took her hand. "Elara Ashwood," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room, last of the Silverpine pack, Soundweaver, survivor. "Do you accept the mate bond? Do you accept the crown? Do you accept me?" She looked into his storm-gray eyes, seeing the man who'd taught her she wasn't broken, who'd waited 2 centuries to find her, who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. "I do," she said, her voice clear and strong, "and beautiful. I accept it all." The bond between them flared to life, visible to everyone present, a golden thread of light connecting their souls. The crowd gasped as the ancient magic manifested, recognizing and claiming them as true mates. Cassian pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers in their private gesture made public. "My queen," he murmured, "my mate, my salvation." "My king," she whispered back. "My protector, my home." When he kissed her, the entire assembly erupted in celebration. But Elara heard none of it. She was too busy feeling the chains of 7 years. The fear, the silence, the constant hiding finally, completely, break. She was no longer invisible, no longer prey, no longer alone. She was the Alpha Queen, and her voice the voice they'd tried to steal, tried to silence, tried to bury, would sing justice, protection, and hope for all those who'd been forgotten, for all the survivors, for all the silenced, for all those who thought they were broken. Her story was proof that even the quietest whisper, given time and courage, could shake kingdoms. And shake kingdoms she would. 6 months after the coronation, Elara stood on the balcony of the northern citadel, watching the sun rise over territories that now bore her protection. The morning was crisp, the kind of cold that reminded her she was alive, that she'd survived when survival seemed impossible. "You're up early." Cassian's arms wrapped around her from behind, his warmth chasing away the chill. "Couldn't sleep?" "I was thinking," she said softly, leaning back into his embrace, "about how different everything is now. Better different or worse different?" She smiled. "Better, definitely better." She turned in his arms, looking up at the face she'd once only glimpsed in shadows. "Do you know what today is? The anniversary of the trial? The anniversary of the day I stopped hiding." She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady, strong, alive. 7 years I was invisible, and then you saw me. I always saw you, little mate." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I just didn't know what I was seeing until you were brave enough to let me." A knock interrupted them. Lord Thorne entered, his scarred face holding something that might have been amusement. "Your Majesties, the delegations are arriving. The new Omegas from the Eastern Territories, they're asking for the Queen specifically." Elara's smile widened. This was her project, her passion. In the months since taking the crown, she'd established sanctuaries throughout the territories for rejected wolves, for the overlooked, for those deemed worthless by rigid pack hierarchies. Dozens had already found safety, purpose, new lives. "Tell them I'll meet them in the East Garden," she said, "the one with the white oak. The same kind of tree her mother used to take her to, the same kind where she'd once believed she'd die alone. Now it would be where others found hope." "You're changing the world," Cassian said after Thorne left. "One wolf at a time." "We're changing it," she corrected. "I couldn't do any of this without you." "You could," he said seriously. "You're stronger than you know, Elara. You always have been. I just gave you space to remember it." She rose on her toes, kissing him softly. The mate bond hummed between them, warm and golden and permanent. "Thank you," she whispered against his lips, "for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." "Thank you," he replied, "for singing when silence was safer, for fighting when running was easier, for being brave enough to let a broken king love you." "You're not broken," His smile was devastating. Neither are you. That's what we learned, isn't it? We were never broken. Just waiting for the right person to remind us we were whole. Later that afternoon, Elara met with the newly arrived Omegas in the garden. 12 wolves, all young, all carrying the haunted look she recognized from her own reflection 7 years ago. They knelt when they saw her, but she gestured them up immediately. No kneeling, she said firmly. Not here. Not to me. I'm not your alpha. I'm your sister, your ally, your proof that surviving is possible. A young girl, barely 16, stepped forward hesitantly. Is it true, Your Majesty, that you were rejected? That you were nobody? I was rejected, Elara confirmed. I was cast out, hunted, terrified. I spent 7 years believing I was worthless because that's what I'd been told. She smiled, and it held all the hard-won strength of her journey. But I learned something important. The people who call you worthless? They're trying to convince you not to fight back, because they know they've always known that your worth isn't determined by their judgment. It's inherent, unshakable, yours. The girl's eyes filled with tears. I want to be strong like you. You already are, Elara said gently. You survived long enough to get here. That's the hardest part. Everything else, we'll learn together. She looked at the assembled wolves, these survivors, these fighters, these precious lives the old world had tried to discard, and felt purpose settle deep in her bones. This was why she'd survived, not just to reclaim her own voice, but to amplify the voices of everyone who'd been silenced. Welcome home, she told them. Welcome to the place where nobody is worthless, where silence isn't safety, and where your voice, whatever form it takes, matters. That night, as she lay beside Cassian in the massive bed that had once intimidated her, she thought about the frightened girl who'd scrubbed floors in this very room, who'd believed she was nothing, who'd been so terrified of being seen that she'd made herself invisible. That girl was gone now, replaced by a queen who understood that visibility was power, that voice was weapon, that survival was just the beginning. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. Cassian's arms tightened around her. I love you too, my fierce, beautiful mate, my queen who learned to roar. Elara smiled against his chest. She'd done more than learn to roar. She'd learned that sometimes the most powerful sound in the world wasn't a roar at all. Sometimes it was a whisper that refused to stay silent. Sometimes it was a voice that said, I am here. I survived. I matter. And that voice, her voice, would echo through the territories for generations to come, reminding every forgotten wolf that their story didn't end with rejection. It was only beginning. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.